Should Finger Dash go from an insane rating to a harder rating? Finger Dash starts off with some awesome cube gameplay to ease us into the new orbs that were added into 2.1. What you're seeing right here is the black orb, and it introduces it perfectly. Basic cube gameplay then continues until we find our first dash orb, once again introduced into 2.1, so it introduces it very simply. And the level somewhat gets more difficult by going upside down and chucking in some green orbs, although by this stage, and considering that this is an insane, this is not that difficult whatsoever. With this segment, you can almost call it the third phase of this intro cube section, where we're getting mixed up with teleports, we're getting mixed up with green orbs, and then we're also getting the upside down dash orb. Now, I think that this part's easy just to build up the music and the hype for what's about to happen with the spider, and of course chucking in a black orb to help you still get used to that. Now, the spider here is brand new, and at least for me, this is a pretty tricky mode. Yeah, it puts in some black orbs, but overall it's pretty basic. This is obviously to help ease the player into a whole new mode, similar to what we saw with Dash with the swing. Both of these are super easy, but they're great. Now, when it comes to the ship section, in my opinion, this is carried by the brand new decorations that were added within 2.1. They pretty much just spammed everything into this one section. Now, this can be proven when looking at the show layout, when it pretty much shows only the things that can kill you. It's very simplistic, therefore easy. There's nothing wrong with that, but once again, this video is to talk about the difficulty of the level. This robot section, rather than showcasing the decorations, is to just showcase the different combinations that you can use with the dash orbs, and also showing the orange orb. There's not a lot going on here gameplay wise. Once again, it's just to ease the player into 2.1's gameplay. Now, this wave section is crazy, and I'll give it to them. Considering that this is a ROBTOP level, by the way, I'm not going to be comparing this level to online levels. This wave is difficult. Now, I get it even gets more difficult with the little side mission we get given with the 10 mini coins, but I'll refrain from that because the whole purpose of the coins is difficulty, so I won't discuss that here. The level starts off with a 2 speed when you're in the normal wave, and then slows down on the mini wave because the mini wave is harder. Then it alternates, goes back to a 2 normal wave and then a 1 mini wave. This develops flow, so it's not that difficult. It's not switching up every single phase, and the player can get used to this. Now, this spider section, although short-lived, is quite difficult. I mean, if we're talking ROBTOP levels here, this little burst of the spider here is definitely one of the hardest moments in the whole entire game as of making this video. This then chucks us into a mini wave similar to what we were discussing before, then into a super simple and easy to sight read mini UFO. And then after that, this part can only be compared to the third phase of the beginning cube section at the beginning of the level, therefore ending us with Finger Dash. Alright, so now we're into the second segment of the video. I'm going to talk about the hardest moment of the level, of course briefly because I would have unintentionally spoken about it prior. Now, I'm pretty sure we can all come to a unanimous agreement. Once again, I'm not going to be including the 10 mini coins to get the main coin here. I'm just talking about the wave itself, and then the spider part that follows up. I'm going to include both of these as one segment. This wave into spider moment is in the 70% segment of the level, so I'm going to consider this a big choke point, especially for new players. I think that compared to other insanes, this stacks up perfectly fine. Although when you look at the intro of the level, or maybe you even look at the ending, this then evens out to be a very mid-level in terms of difficulty, in my opinion. For the third and final phase of today's video, I'm going to compare Finger Dash to the level I believe is the closest to it in difficulty. And this would have to go to the other main video that I did talking about being downgraded, being Dash. Now, why am I making this comparison? Well, not only are they both standalone levels when it comes to introducing new gameplay, with Finger Dash with the spider in 2.1 and Dash with the camera controls and the swing of 2.2. I believe that also makes difficulty wise a fantastic matchup, and if you've seen the Dash video, I'll keep it short. I thought that it should stay an insane, although I think that it just deserves that because of how many new things it introduced. So that also brings us to the conclusion of today's video. If I believe that Dash, with all the new things, camera controls, new decorations, and the new mode that are added should just be insane, what do I think about Finger Dash? Well, I think Finger Dash should be downgraded. I think it should be downgraded because I've always begged the argument that the insane rating does not build value to the level. It doesn't build value at all. You can have a harder level, such as blast processing at the time. I'm not comparing difficulty, just for what the value of the level is. I think that it's perfectly fine as a harder. That's going to be it for today's video, everyone. I think that Finger Dash should be a harder. So do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section below. If you think that ROBTOP Demon is the hardest. So how are these rankings going to work? Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about the consistency. How consistently hard is the level? Is it consistently difficult, or are there some really easy parts? Second of all, I'm going to talk about the hardest moments, including choke points, although hardest moments could be maybe the beginning wave in Deadlocked. Who knows, maybe I'll add that in the Deadlock section. Next up is going to be learning curves. Maybe there's some UFO patterns, or maybe there's some new game modes that you might not be used to when this level comes up. And then last of all, the coins. I'm leaving the coins until last because they're meant to be difficult. Now, the marking criteria for these 3 demons as of making this video, they're great and all, but they have no value. So in today's video, we're just going to do a simple 1 through 10 scale. So if I think the coins are super hard, they get a 10. And if I think that they're super easy, self-explanatory, they get a 0. Club Step's beginning is on the same level as an insane intro, right? This doesn't look like a demon. I mean, what, there's like 3 to 4 orb fakes that you could press, but I'm assuming that you're going to be using practice modes. That's not difficult, right? And then for this invisible block section, I don't think that this is that hard, right? Is this an agreement that we can come towards? Now, when it comes to the ship section, if you're playing ROBTOP's levels in order, you could struggle here. You really could. It's memorization. I'm here playing Club Step, and yeah, it's easy for me, right? Well, obviously, because it's memorized. I've memorized this section. This part here honestly reminds me of the intro, what, there's like 2 orbs that you shouldn't press. Come on now, this is easy. This is meant to be a demon. Right now, this is easy. The ball section meets the criteria when it comes to memorization. There's a bunch of fakes here, and you're definitely going to need to be practicing this. The UFO section is what we were discussing earlier as well, with UFO timings. It's pretty easy stuff. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1. Pretty easy. This ship section here, not that bad, especially if you've played electrodynamics. And then once again, we have an orb section similar to the intro. If you suck at upside down sections, you are going to have to practice this part religiously. There's no question about it. The mini UFO, you're gonna have to dodge invisible spikes, but that's not it. Now, this mini ship part is difficult. Not only are you the mini, but you also have to make precise movements around these invisible spikes. That's not just it. In the exact same motion, you get put in this electrodynamics looking section where you have to go upside down, normal gravity, upside down, and then normal gravity constantly. So you need to get used to that. But right here, we have a cube section where we get faked out by 2 upside down orbs. Then after that, we go upside down ourselves here, and then we also have to drop on an invisible block. Then in the exact same motion, you go an upside down mini ship, then you go in normal gravity, but then you have to make sure that you don't hold or you don't let go for too long, and then you're upside down again. And then it's not a straight fly either. You have to make sure that you hold, but not for too long, because then you'll die. Then it chucks us into another spam section where there are no fakes at all. We drop down for a little bit to grab the coin, and then after that, it's over. When it comes to the consistency of Club Step, I honestly believe that this is the most consistent demon out of the 3 that ROBTOP has currently released. I understand that this is where opinion comes into the video and at the end of each level's analysis, but I think that that could be agreed upon. There's a lot of memorization, there's a fair bit of hard moments, there's numerous amounts of learning curves, and the coins aren't ideal. This level is consistently difficult. When it comes to the hardest moment of Club Step / choke point, because this is simultaneously a choke point, it is easily 86%. I believe that this part is the most challenging and definitely one of the more challenging moments out of any ROBTOP level. New players are going to hate this adjustment of constantly having to have trigger discipline, and there's no easy sections, as previously mentioned, such as a straight fly. It's constant readjustments. I think you all would have figured this one out. The learning curves would be the UFO with the click pattern that I gave to you guys. Yeah, it's not like the definitive click pattern or whatever, but I mean, it's not that difficult of a section. It should work for everyone, but that is a learning curve. That's literally what a learning curve is. The UFO section. The coins are a bit of an interesting one. The first coin is literally the easier path in the intro of the level. The second coin would probably be the hardest in my opinion out of the three, although it's still not that hard. You just need to consistently click and make sure that there's rhythm. That's all you need for that coin, rhythm. Now the third coin's interesting. I don't think it's an easier way, although I don't think it's a harder way either. And if you guys are wondering why I didn't include that part as a choke point, we have to separate choke points from just being really deep into the level. At the end of the level, everyone gets nervous. It's obviously going to be a choke point, so I tried to separate the very end to something else for the rest of these levels as well. For consistency, give me an 8 out of 10. Not the fact that this level is consistently an 8 out of 10 when it comes to difficulty. No. It's just the fact that the level is consistently difficult. There's a difference. Alright, hear me out on it, okay? Because I think that is a decent metric to use with the difficulty of ROBTOP's levels. The hardest moments, considering this is a ROBTOP level, okay? This video cannot be compared to online levels. Give me an 8 out of 10. This level, when I was new, caught me way off guard, and my friends that have just started playing the game to the point where they're up to club step hate this segment as well. Learning curves, although I did talk about the UFO, still give me a 5 out of 10. It is not that difficult whatsoever once you at least know what to do after what, 2 practices? For coins, honestly, give me a 4 out of 10. That first coin drags this rating of 10 down tremendously. Yeah, the second and the third one aren't some world class, this is extreme difficulty coins, I get it, although they still would have ranked higher considering that this is a ROBTOP level we're talking about, but that first coin is pathetic difficulty wise. Give me a 4 out of 10 overall. And out of 40, this is what club step is looking like. Theory of Everything 2's intro is easily the easiest from the 3 demons that ROBTOP has made. The only orb fakes have X's on them, and not only at that, they're extremely obvious to sight. This is not hidden by any decoration. This ship segment here looks way harder than it actually is, so here's some reassurance. When we slow this fully down, not only do you not die when getting the coin because there's no spikes, but look how much room there is. I mean, all that segment when you hold for the coin, there's no spikes. You're not going to die. And then when it comes to this normal gravity to the upside down ship, there's much more space than it really looks like in real time. Not a lot to say for this UFO section. In my opinion, it is very easy. See, this again, it looks difficult, this ball section, although with the fakes being extremely obvious, being literally X'd out, I don't think that you would have an issue with this after at least 1 practice run. This UFO section is a forget everything you've learned kind of situation. Once you're upside down here, you're going to continually spam even once you get past the normal gravity mini UFO section to be able to keep on gaining that momentum that you need to not get hit. Another segment just like the intro, either the fakes are way too far away for you to even justify pressing them, or they're X'd out. And then when it comes to these blocks, the ones that you're meant to jump on are flashing, similar to club step with those invisible blocks. I'll be honest, this ship segment is pretty challenging. It's not necessarily challenging in what you have to do, it's how you have to do it. It's a recurring theme with ship segments just in Geometry Dash in general. The actual level is showing you how to do it, but it's not telling you how to. What I mean by that is you have to hold, but then after that you have to jitter. Not necessarily a straight fly, but more of just a readjustment period. This whole ship segment is just readjustments, and that is tricky for new players. Once again, all the fakes are X'd out, super easy. Yeah, you got a triple spike, and then you have some invisible blocks flashing, telling you where to jump and where not to. Alright, brace yourselves. I'm gonna start dropping some opinions. Guys. I think that the wave's easy. So especially when it's this open, I believe that this is actually the funnest part of the level, because in my mind it's just some autopilot. I really like the wave. The ball section is not only fun, but it's also very easy to learn. Notice how my colors are pink and purple. Well, the blocks that I need to get onto correspond to my color choice being pink that I need to get on. This wave here is the exact same story as what I spoke about with the first wave in Theory of Everything 2. Then we get sent into a mini ship where people struggle with how long that they need to hold for. This segment is exactly like the beginning. All the fakes are X'd out and they're super easy to read. Now everyone knows this segment, it's a major choke point in Theory of Everything 2. This ship segment is visibly tight, and having having to go upside down with trigger discipline and the change of how long you need to hold your clicks for, yeah, new players are going to hate this, and guess what? They already do. Not an awful lot to say for this segment. There's literally like, what, 2 to 3 clicks? I'm honestly not even going to bother slowing this down. I didn't have a single issue with this mini UFO section. Then we go into this crazy looking mini wave, which is, in my opinion, easy. Then we have a couple jumps, and then the level is over. For the consistency in theory of everything too, give me a 5 out of 10, because it feels as if every single time there is a difficult section, or something that might challenge you, or something that might be a choke point, you get put into a basic cube section. This is prevalent with the 68% ship. Then you just get put into a cube section where you just do nothing, and then after that, the cube section following up looks like the intro. Self-explanatory. For the hardest moment, it's not close. It's also a choke point, and my opinion, I believe that it's the hardest moment out of any ROBTOP level. Once again, these cannot be compared to online levels. Give me a 10 out of 10 for the 81% ship. Give me a 10 out of 10. Give it to me, man, because I believe it is the hardest ROBTOP moment out of all of his levels. As of making this video, Explorers hasn't come out yet, therefore, it is a 10. It only makes sense. For learning curves, I think it's just mid. I think the learning curves in this level are mid difficulty. Give me a 5 out of 10. Because what I mean by that is that there's no specific click patterns. Yeah, you might have to spam with the UFO and then show trigger discipline right after, but that's just kind of to be expected within a demon difficulty. The level as a whole is much harder than the actual learning curves. For coins, give me a 6 out of 10. I'm pretty comfortable with a 6 out of 10 rating, simply because the beginning ship is uncomfortable. You can get used to it. It looks harder than it actually is, although with that said, it's still a little bit tricky. And then the second coin is no easy feat either. Being able to get that coin while at a flow state with what the wave has already presented to you is pretty tricky, although it gets dragged down immediately, considering that the third coin is so easy that it's actually the easier path. That ending bit is so easy. Now, with that all said, here's Theory of Everything 2's rating with my scale out of 40. As we know, Deadlocked does not come to play. We start off with normal cubing straight into a mini wave, and then we have to get introduced as a demon to green orbs and teleport orbs. It keeps on going for literally the whole intro. Yeah, listen, you're not going to get faked out, but still, that's crazy. So this is easily one of ROBTOP's most iconic sections in any of his levels. So we start off with a jitter click, then we go up, then we have to go, and then we have to make sure that we have trigger discipline with these orbs, which make us want to press, but turns out that we can't, or else we'll die. We have a memorization ship here where we need to get a key at the top to make sure that we get the coin that we'll see further on in the level. This looks a bit action-packed, but I don't think it's that hard. The ball section may look action-packed to new players, although truth of the matter is, it's really easy. Yeah, what, you have to wait for one platform to rise up. You'll remember that after one practice. Alright, for this UFO section, shout out Eric Van Wilderman when he first completed Deadlocked. Hear me out. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the click pattern, baby. Shout out Eric Van Wilderman. Let's get it. The difficulty of this segment really just relies on your range of clicks with the robot, getting used to do little jumps and then big jumps. I really can't help or describe why this segment is difficult or not difficult. It just depends on the player. Really not a lot to say here. It's a very sight-readable section where you're just getting used to the teleports, of course, if you played ROBTOP's levels in order. So this little passageway is very easy. That's the pathway that we got when we got the key at the beginning. Then we just have some orb work, which in my opinion looks very difficult, although after one practice run, it just clicked with me back when I actually played Deadlocked. This part is not that challenging. You just have to understand how to do baby jumps as the robot, pretty much. You drop down there, do a decent jump, baby jumps, and then you make sure that you click all the orbs that you are provided. There's no fakes here. I'm not going to be slowing down this segment. It's very straightforward. You just have to learn how to straight fly and use the flying that you learned in Theory of Everything 2. Not that bad. The UFO section, in my opinion, is very easy. Yeah, you might get caught off guard because this looks very chaotic, but gameplay wise, it's actually very simple. When we get up to this dual wave section, just look at the bottom wave. And then for that middle section, it's almost like spamming on blast processing. Then as we get onto the mini wave here, they give you guides. They literally give you guides on when to press and when to let go. That is very easy. It looks hard, but in my opinion, it's easy. This part here is completely memorization. There is no tips, there's no tricks, there's no advice that I could possibly give you here. For this ball section, there are no fakes when it comes to the orbs. You basically just need to get used to platforms moving despite your character just moving at the exact same speed that it would have if the platforms were just stagnant. Okay, so the UFO has two sections. At the beginning, you want to go above the second moving square and then go into the middle. Here, you want to drop through the middle and then jump above and then stick to the middle because obviously that's how you exit. Thankfully, the ending 5%, it's super easy. It's just self-explanatory, nothing hard, not even a triple spike, and then you're done. Just behind Club Step when it comes to consistency, give me a 7 out of 10 for Deadlocked, because although I do believe that there are definite hard segments, it's a demon. I think that the easy sight readable ball sections or the easy to develop click patterns for UFO sections drag the rating down from a 10, not a 9, not an 8, but down to a 7. Now, although I bagged on the consistency, the hard moments on Deadlocked are hard moments to the point where I'm actually torn on between the ship memory section and what I'm actually going to pick, the dual wave. Give me the dual wave for the hardest moment, which you could also consider a choke point considering that this is around 70% of the level. I think that this is the hardest moment because although you can say to just focus on one wave and then that this segment's like blast processing and that they guide you with the buildings to use the mini wave, it's easier said than done, and that's why I think that it's the hardest moment in Deadlocked. For learning curves, give me a 6 out of 10. I believe that I'm very comfortable giving this rating off because even though we had a UFO section where we even shouted out the GOAT Eric Van Wilderman, that section is easy to learn. There is a learning curve, but it's easy to learn. So why would I rank it high? That just makes no sense. And then when it comes to the memorization for the ship part, it just looks much more chaotic, at least in my opinion, than it is gameplay wise, because once you hit practice mode, it's a part of the game. That's why I included it in today's video. Once you hit practice mode, I think it's pretty easy. You know, you're not on edge, you're chilling out, and then you realize it just looks colorful. My eyes are getting destroyed, but gameplay wise, hey, not that bad. For the coins, I think it's a 7 out of 10. Give me a 7 out of 10 because I think that the key for the first coin is out of your way enough for me to consider it more difficult than the normal path. The second coin, it really depends on your robot skills, how your trigger discipline or your variety of clicks for the robot, because as we know, the longer you press, the higher you jump. So when it comes to that second coin, that could throw some new players off or just players in general. And then the third coin, it's not that bad, although with what you have next and then how you enter into the UFO, it can be a bit tricky. And it's also at the beginning of the UFO, so I might add that bit as well. That can definitely throw players off. And this is Deadlocked's rating out of 40, our last level. If this topic of discussion video looks familiar, it's because it is. I made Which level is harder, Clutterfunk or Hexagon Force? Coins will not be included in today's video, as they're meant to be difficult. Now the reason for this matchup is I believe that for the Insanes, this is one of the best matchups that you can possibly have. I can't compare these levels to something like Electrodynamics because Electrodynamics is too hard. I can't compare these levels to something like Dash or Finger Dash because those levels are too easy. So anyways, let's get into it. So if we look at the minute details, what's similar between both of these levels, we can see on Clutterfunk, it only has 5 orb and pad fakes combined. So not a lot of fakes here on Clutterfunk. So what does this mean? Well, it unintentionally results in more gameplay difficulty rather than mental difficulty when it comes to memorization. Now, when it comes to Hexagon Force, we thought that Clutterfunk was more gameplay. Turns out it's actually Hexagon Force this time around, with Hexagon Force having 3 fakes when it comes to orbs and pads combined, which I don't believe that there's any pad fakes in the entire level, which 2 of them, if I'm not mistaken, are X'd out, similar to what we spoke about with our Demons video with Theory of Everything 2's orb fakes being X'd out. So not only does Hexagon Force have less fakes when it comes to the orbs and pads this also means that they're way easier to read. So these two levels are very heavy when it comes to the difficulty within gameplay. Now both of these levels introduce something, with Clutterfunk introducing the mini, so therefore everything's mini, and then Hexagon Force introducing the dual. Now we won't make this video too subjective, so I'm not going to say that I believe that the dual is more difficult than the mini, for example. Rather, I'm actually going to compare how long each level prioritizes their new gameplay change. When taking a look at Clutterfunk, this easily uses its new game mode more, with 1 minute and 21 seconds of game time using mini gameplay, compared to Hexagon Force using the dual for a minuscule, in comparison, 23.11 seconds. Now the importance of what I've just discussed is to showcase the learning curve of both of these levels for the player when they finally come around to Clutterfunk or Hexagon Force. Clutterfunk eases us into, at least in my opinion, a very simplistic and easy minicube section, making sure that the player understands that the physics when you're in mini for any form are different, and noticeably different at that as well. After some normal gameplay, then we get put into a mini ball, and what's difficult about this for possibly new players is that the timings for the orbs are much more difficult. Why are they more difficult? Well, what we just previously discussed is that the physics for mini, once again, they're different, so this can definitely throw new players off. Then in the same motion, although for a short period of time, we get put into a mini ship, which is definitely, in my opinion, the most difficult out of any of the mini game modes. Now, the ending of the level can only be described in its entirety, because the difficulty of the mini stems from the fact that the game, or ROBTOP, has us going from normal physics into mini physics, and when you're new to the game, this can definitely throw you off, and this is honestly speaking from experience from the years ago when I actually played Clutterfunk for the very first time. The orb timings were a killer, and just the fact that I had to constantly mentally adjust to the physics that was really challenging for me. And then with that said, that is the end of the use of the mini, while also ending the level of Clutterfunk. Hexagon Force's short-lived use of the dual is probably one of the biggest learning curves that you'll see in ROBTOP's selection of levels, because what I've found in my comment section is that people just simply do not understand how to use the dual when the gameplays on the top and the bottom do not sync up perfectly. It completely throws the player off. Yeah, we spoke about Hexagon Force only using its brand new gameplay for 21 seconds, but that alone can definitely throw new players off, and I don't even think it's opinionated. I think that it's fact that the 21 seconds that Hexagon Force uses of its brand new dual game mode is easily more difficult than Clutterfunk. Now, something that is noteworthy is that the time between the first duel and the second duel, starting off with the ball section, is 12 seconds. So I guess you could count this as a chance for the player to recalibrate their mind and kind of have a rest period, because I think that we can all agree that the cube sections are much easier than they are for the duel sections. Adding on to that, the difference between the dual ball hole section, I'll just count it as the dual ball section, and then the dual slowed down mini ship is 17 seconds, so more time for the player to be able to recalibrate. And you would have caught me saying something just then, the dual mini. So that brings us into our next argument as well. So what's noteworthy about that? It's because Clutterfunk came out before Hexagon Force. Clutterfunk never had the chance to utilize the dual. This then results in, once again, another short-lived dual section, although definitely another learning curve, being the dual mini ball. I personally remember, so I'm speaking from experience here, not purely just opinion, this was a massive learning curve for me as a new player a couple of years ago, because when I first did this mini ball section, it was chaotic, I didn't quite understand it, and I had to first of all take a step back and just know what the game actually asked from me. Now, when it comes to the two mini ship dual sections that I haven't discussed yet, I'm going to just touch on them briefly. I find these very simple because not only do you get a lot of space to be able to fly around in, so there's room for error when it comes to misclicks, holding for too long, letting go, you guys get the idea, right? When it comes to Clutterfunk, because once again, 1 minute and 21 seconds is used with its brand new game mode, the cube sections aren't that intense to me. Yeah, the directional changes that we first saw on Time Machine might throw you off at the beginning, but I don't really think that that's that big of a deal. And on top of that, the intro is only 15 seconds until it transitions you into what we already spoke about, obviously, the mini cube. So it's really not that bad. Then this ship section here, I'm just gonna shrug it off. It reminds me exactly like X-Step, and X-Step isn't really that bad at all. This ship section is also, in my opinion, very easy. It's repetitive and it looks a bit harder maybe for new players, but it's very short and, in my opinion, easy. Now when it comes to the gameplay of Hexagon Force, I'm in love with it. It's one of my favorite levels of all time. When it comes to the difficulty, I'm unimpressed, because when it comes to these cube sections, when it comes to this ship section where you can hit your head and let go and just stay letting go for many of the parts, it's not that difficult at all. It's really not. The ball section, no fakes. Then it transitions us into this cube section where once you get your timings right for the jumps of the slopes, it's not that bad either. And then we're in a dual section, which we're not counting right now. Probably the hardest section out of the non-dual bits, we have a bunch of orb gameplay with 2 of the orbs being X'd out, similar to what I discussed when I spoke about Theory of Everything 2 in the Demons video. That's easy to avoid. You're not falling for that. Then this mini UFO section is completely filler. No one is dying here, I can guarantee you that much. Then this ship section here, after the mini dual ship, it's very easy. It honestly reminds me of Blast Processing in a way. Then we get put into another cube section, which is reminiscent of what I've recently spoke about. So I'm not going to just sit here and yap. Look at that, another fake that's X'd out. It's easy to read. Everything here you can click. It's just spam heavy. Everyone should be able to do that. Then to end off Clutterfunk, we have a very slow normal ship where even going through the coin route is, in my opinion, arguably easier. When it comes to what level I believe is harder, what's more difficult, I think that my answer is quite easy. I'm going to be giving it to Clutterfunk. And because I believe that Clutterfunk is way more consistent when it comes to its difficulty, and that's something that I value when I look into what's difficult overall. Hexagon Force, on the other hand, when it's not focusing on its just minuscule 20 seconds of dual gameplay, it is easy. In my opinion, it's easy. I believe that Hexagon Force is an overrated level when it comes to difficulty. You're telling me that these are meant to fake me out. These orbs with X's on them are meant to fake me out. Really?